after the board meeting has had the opportunity to discuss the topic. The Board of County Commissioners will invite comments on topics not included in the agenda during general public comment. This will be directly after considering consent agenda. This is a time for addressing issues not on today's agenda, but related to the general business of the Douglas County Commission. We'll first call on folks who are here with us in person, and then we'll turn to any online commenters who are here with us tonight. If you're here on Zoom, please plan to use the raise your hand function when the time comes and listen for staff to call your name. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask everyone to give their full name and Douglas County residence for our meeting minutes. All public comments should be directed to the County Commission. Campaigning for public office is not allowed. We also reserve the right to mute and remove any speaker who is vulgar, rude, or inappropriate. The public should know that comments received by the Commission during our meetings do not represent the views of Douglas County government. If visual aids are used during the meeting, the presenter will share their screen. Please know that online participants will not be able to view them without a computer, smartphone, or tablet during tonight's meetings. Materials are published online for your reference as well. Lastly, a recording of this meeting will be available on our YouTube page and website. Tonight, we have 3 items on our consent agenda, and then we'll have general public comment. We have 2 items on our regular agenda. One is a financial statement and the conclusion of the fiscal year 2022 audit. And then we will also consider a site plan, SP 23-00216, for those keeping score, for a contractor's shop yard at 1749 East 1500 Road, before appointments, miscellaneous, and adjournment. So we'll start with the consent agenda. Commissioners, do any of you have an item to pull from the consent agenda for further discussion? Seeing none, I'll check with the public. Is anyone here to pull an item off the consent agenda for further discussion? Anyone online, Sarah? Okay, Commissioners, I'd take a motion on the consent agenda.
Commissioner Reed, move to approve 1.1 through 1.3.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 3-0. We'll move on to general public comment. If you're here to provide general public comment, we ask you to come to the podium. Don't forget to hit the button to turn on the green light. Yep. I'll start with Marsha Pohl.
Okay. I wanted to talk about safety and wind turbine clutter. I was contacted just recently by a local weather meteorologist, and he was asking about the wind turbine possibility that was being proposed in Douglas County. I responded that NextEra was proposing to develop an industrial wind farm in the southwest part of our county, and it would be called the Lark Song Wind Energy Center. That would consist of Douglas, Osage, and Franklin County. And any wind turbine, he said, built near you or between you and the radar will diminish the performance of the radar system before the wind turbines have come in. It'll be worse. Anyway, a NextEra person said in an Osage County meeting, and the reason it's Osage County, it was all in the same wind turbine thing that they're planning, so I would assume this would also be for us, that the turbines would be 500 feet to the hub, and the blades would reach 250 feet further, making it 750 feet tall. This can be verified by witnesses that were over there at that county, if you want to know. The response from the meteorologist, he said, "Oh my God, 750 feet? Give me anything you have on 750 feet being part of it. That makes a major difference for Douglas County. I need that right away, please." Truly, he said, there will be a day where we will miss a tornado and it kills a bunch of people. I will not stand here holding the bag full of blame without trying to make noise. And wind turbine clutter will cause this person, the National Weather Service and other meteorologists to miss a big tornado someday. I guarantee it. My confidence is in this statement is greater because of the ROC 5 document I shared with you. The National Weather Service says the word yet here. And it says, has the National Weather Service ever missed a weather warning to the public or give a false warning to the public as a result of wind turbine clutter? He said, a warning has not been missed yet, but there have been some with false warnings issued because of the wind turbine clutter. And wind turbine companies claim that there are mitigation strategies that they will use to help, determine whether it's there or not. And he says, ask them the question, how far are you looking?
Marcia, that's
at
3
these?
minutes.
Oh, I am sorry. Anyway, it's not a good thing. Thank you.
Sue?
Hi, my name is Sue Herring. I'm back here again tonight to talk to you about what I call the COVID games. And if you initiate the COVID games again this year, masking, vaxxing, closing down businesses, a lot of people are not going to play. A lot of people aren't going to join these games. And I thought, just for a review tonight, so that I don't appear like the only crazy person in town coming up and telling you this, I wanted to impress upon you how much the name Free State is the DNA of this town. And a lot of people besides myself feel this way about the COVID games. So I'm going to read to you a list of people, businesses that use Free State in their name. And it's not all of it. I made it brief because of the 3-minute thing. Free State Brewery, Free State High School, Free State Family Medicine, Free State Church, Free State Canine, Free State Properties, Free State Dermatology, Free State Dental, Free State Roofing, Free State Doors, Free State Healthcare, Free State Fence and Deck, Free State Business Center, Free State Auto Works, Free State Nutrition, Free State Fireworks. That's the brief list. There are also festivals flying under that flag, bike events, art fairs, and there's even a street called Free State. And this thing about COVID, everyone considers it just a physical infection, but in fact, it's really an infection of the mind. And the cure is common sense. Thank you.
That's all I have signed up. Is anyone else?
My name is Dr. Justin Spees. Here is the weekly reminder for you all to not bring back mask mandates. There's still a lot of talk in the media about mask mandates coming back. Matter of fact, there's a school district in New York that just brought back mask mandates. So I'm here to read from another research article that describes some of the disastrous effects of masks. And keep in mind, this is in addition to that masks don't work, and that we're Americans and we don't need you telling us what to do. We can take care of ourselves. So this article was in the International Journal of Environmental Research on Public Health, published April of 2021. It's entitled, "Is a Mask That Covers the Mouth and Nose Free from Undesirable Side Effects in Everyday Use and Free of Potential Hazards?" In a mask experiment from 2020, significant impaired thinking and impaired concentration were found for all mask types used, fabric, surgical, and N95 masks, after only 100 minutes of wearing the mask. The thought disorders correlated significantly with a drop in oxygen saturation during mask use. According to an experimental study, wearing surgical masks and N95 masks can also lead to reduced quality of life owing to reduced cardiopulmonary capacity. Masks, along with causing physiological changes and discomfort with progressive length of use, can also lead to significant discomfort and a feeling of exhaustion. Masks also restrict the cognitive abilities of the individual, accompanied by a decline in psychomotoric abilities and consequently a reduced responsiveness, as well as an overall reduced performance capability. The mask also causes an impaired field of vision and also presents an inhibition to habitual actions such as eating, drinking, touching, scratching, and cleaning the otherwise uncovered part of the face, which is consciously and subconsciously perceived as a permanent disturbance, obstruction, and restriction. Wearing masks thus entails a feeling of deprivation of freedom and loss of autonomy and self-determination, which can lead to suppressed anger and subconscious constant distraction, especially as the wearing of masks is mostly dictated and ordered by others. These perceived interferences of integrity, self-determination, and autonomy, coupled with discomfort, often contribute to substantial distraction and may ultimately be combined with the physiological mask-related decline in psychomotoric abilities, reduced responsiveness, and an overall impaired cognitive performance. It leads to misjudging situations as well as delayed, incorrect, and inappropriate behavior. And you all did this, and you all had mask mandates in place for children starting at 2 years old. All of these things that masks have done to children, you guys did. And everyone else that went along with it and didn't stand up and say anything, you all contributed to it too. So congratulations.
Additional public comment? No.
Okay. My name is Ellen Johnson. I'm here because I would like the county commissioners to put their heads together, think about it, and write a position statement to the district attorney asking that they loosen or remove any restrictions on eligibility for Senate Bill 123 where they are stronger, tighter, or more restricting than those of the state. I would also ask that you request the DA use the RAFT funds available to provide all of those services available to Senate Bill 123 participants to anyone granted diversion, and that they create a provisional diversion program for defendants who are not eligible for 123 due to state restrictions. The reason I'm saying this is because I've seen on the ground that Senate bill works and prison sentences don't. I did a lot of drugs. I went to treatment that helped me. I'm grateful. Now that I'm clean, I've seen a lot of my drug dealers get clean, and I can't buy drugs because they're clean. They love their new life, they've completed Senate bill, and they're helping other people get and stay clean. So regardless of the ideological restrictions ideological reasoning behind any restrictions placed on eligibility for Senate bill, or refusing probation and following mandatory minimums for people ineligible for Senate bill, the fact is it works. And what do you want for your community? Do you want people to go to prison where drugs are freely available, continue using drugs, get back out on the streets hopeless, and reoffend in this community? Or do you want them to get better, love their new life, help others, and help their community? I'm on the ground. I see this. It works. This is what the community needs. You might want to punish those big bad drug dealers, but they're just going to come back and punish you again unless they get help. And this is how we do it. I would also like you to put your heads together, look at the facts, and write a position statement to judges requesting that they depart from mandatory minimums, which don't work, and provide probation, Senate bill, alternatives to incarceration. That's why I've seen it work. I've seen it work 1,000 times. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm hoping that you can put your heads together, speak with your constituents, think about what they want for their community, which is not to be victims of crime. It's not to sit there and worry about your niece, your cousin, your aunt, your uncle, your sister, your brother, wonder if they're going to be alive the next day. It's to know that they're healthy and cared for and they have help. And you can take people that honestly other drug users look up to, charged with distribution, turn them into productive members of society, and other drug users will look up to them and want to get clean too. So, I mean, it's a win-win situation. It's the best thing for us, and it's a lot cheaper than prison. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
I feel silly even introducing myself, but I'm Lori Shuck. I live out in the southwest part of the county, and you guys kind of know why I'm here. I'm sure you've heard enough. I was approached by this wind company to sign up for transmission lines. Neighbors on both sides of me have signed up, and they wanted me to, and I told them no. Mainly because it's a good piece of property. We've got beans on it. We might even have some beans this year, which is in short supply. I don't want to see good farmland used that way. Not to take a 150-foot path right out of it, catty corner, and bulldoze all our trees. But since I said no recently, I was out and at my fence post, these are magnetic survey markers, got 4 of them. There's no utility lines down that part of the road. They end at my house. And I got these right to an Evergy employee who took them to work. He said they belong to a power company, but not Evergy. And then he told me, wink, wink. They've been on that's private property where my fences are. They have no right to be there. They have a sign now telling them they have no right to be there. Why do they think we're going through with this? What has this company been led to believe this is going to happen? Or they wouldn't have people out surveying the transmission lines to hook them all up. It has me concerned whether or not we're putting a lot of thought into what you're doing to our county. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Anyone online, Sarah? Okay, we'll close public comment and move on to our regular agenda and oh,
My name's Lois Ardall. I live on,
right in front of that mic, Lois. Pull it down just a little bit to you. It'll flex right there at the top. There you go.
I hate being short. Okay, my name's Lois Ardall. I live on 174 East, 550 Road, Overbrook, Kansas. Okay, I'm here about the setbacks. I hear that the Planning Commission is having 2 of them for a certain setback and 2 of them aren't. When we went to a meeting, Rex Road asked one of their specialists of next era what would be the safety for noise and all of that. And he recommended a mile setback. So my thing is, the Planning Commission is talking about 1,500 feet. To me, they have listened to everything NextEra has said from their experts. And I'm wondering why they haven't listened to this. Our recommendation is 2,500 feet. Because of ice throw, we're all out in the county doing chores, come through our house, and where I live is on the Globe Road. That road is as busy as 56, morning and night, because we get people from Franklin County, Pomona area, that cut across. And then my other thing is, what are we going to do about the neighbors in Franklin County and Osage that did not sign up? What is going to be the setback for them? Because they should not be punished if this goes through because of us, because their property values would go down. I recommend a 2-mile, 3-mile setback from the county line, because we got to be good neighbors to Osage and Franklin. We got to respect what they have done. And I grew up with most of them that live 2-3 miles in the Franklin County. So I want you to take that in consideration. We got to be respectful to the other counties. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment?
Good evening. Brent Bovee, rural Douglas County. Wanted to thank the administrator for all the responses to the questions related to property tax for 2024. I did see your note this afternoon. Had 2 other questions. The non-appropriated amounts of nearly 7 million. I understand that that's buried in the bowels of the budget sheets as required by the state. Are those $7 million included in the property tax calculation?
We don't usually, the commission can redirect staff for questions, but usually you just address the commission.
So do you know if the 7 million that's non-appropriated?
When we get to the end of your comments, we'll
Okay. And then last year's 2023 budget did tie to the summary sheet. So my question there is, were there no non-appropriated amounts? And then the final comment I have tonight is when I look at Douglas County compared to Shawnee and Wyandotte and Leavenworth and Riley County, and I take the budget divided by the population, Douglas County is substantially higher. And I would just urge you to reduce costs, cut spending, and be fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay. We'll move on to our regular agenda item. We'll start with financial statement and a conclusion of the fiscal year 2022 audit. Brooke?
Good evening, Commissioners. Brooke Sauer, Douglas County Finance Manager. I come before you tonight to ask you to accept the 2022 financial statement. This is for our fiscal year, which begins on January 1 and ends on December 31. I'd like to introduce Tara Laughlin, Vice President of Assurance with Allen Gibbs & Hulick. She will go over the financial statement with you tonight. And then we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Good evening. As Brooke mentioned, I'm Tara Laughlin with AGH, Vice President in our Government Audit Department, and here tonight to present the results of the fiscal year 2022 financial statement audit. I just want to thank Brooke, Sarah, a lot of staff here that help us throughout this process. It's a lot of additional work to do on top of their normal responsibilities, and everybody is always very responsive to our questions and ask for support during the process. We do the financial statement audit, and the scope of services we provided as an opinion on the financial statements. As a reminder, Douglas County elects to present their financial statements under the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide, which correlates to presenting it on the budget basis as required by state statute. So they are not generally accepted accounting principle financials. So within our opinion, you will see that we opine that they do not meet generally accepted accounting principles, but it does meet the KMAG presentation. So on the KMAG presentation, we did issue an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, which means the financial information in the financial statements materially reflects the books and records of the county for the fiscal year. Most what I'm going to go over is the letter that is addressed to the board. It's what audit standards require we communicate every year with those charged with governance. So I'm going to run through this letter and highlight items that are specific to fiscal year 2022. Towards the end of the first page, we always discuss there if there are any new accounting standards that were effective for the entity. This year, there were none. So when you're looking at last year's financials to this year's, any change would be due to change in operations, not because something is accounted for differently. On page 2, we do discuss that these financials are done as allowed by state statute under the KMAG basis presentation. There was some additional footnote disclosures this year required by the KMAG related to leasing activity that the county is involved in. So it's adding that to the debt schedule just to show what the lease balances are at year end. On page 2, there are some accounting estimates. These are included within the footnote disclosures only as required by KMAG. They're the same as last year. Most relate to employee-related items like compensated absences, The county is self-insured, so estimates on incurred but not reported claims, and the county's share of the CAPER's pension liability. Our responsibility as it relates to estimates is to understand how management comes up with those estimates, make sure they're in line with standards, we review inputs, outputs, calculations, and in all cases, we found that these estimates were done reasonably and in line with standards. At the bottom of page 2 onto page 3, we are required to discuss audit adjustments. I'm going to highlight the one on the top of page 3. This is done because of a refunding that was done 2 or 3 years ago. Money is set in a trust, which is outside of the county system. So that's all tracked appropriately by the trustee. We're just bringing that activity into the financials based on trustee records. So the remainder of these are all pretty common audit adjustments that we would find with the county. In the middle of page 3, I always like to highlight the observations about the audit process. Again, we didn't have any disagreements with management. They were all very responsive to our requests throughout the audit process. Towards the bottom of page 3 onto page 4, I just want to highlight, this is new. If you're looking at last year's letter, we are now required to discuss how we remain independent of county and management so that you are getting an independent auditor's opinion. So that just outlines really the standard and what goes into making sure that we maintain that independence throughout the audit process. At the bottom of page 4, again, we have this in our letters every year, just as a reminder about cybersecurity. We always like to remind those charged with governance that, this is an issue that's not gonna ever go away. And just to make sure you feel comfortable with what the county is doing to help alleviate any risks related to cybersecurity. A couple of items I just want to highlight that's not specifically in this letter. Last year we did report, in the last few years we have reported a significant deficiency related to how purchase orders are approved. This year you'll see that's not in there, and that's because the county has added a compensating control in place over that process where somebody outside of the purchase order process is reviewing an audit trail report and looking for anybody that's initiating in the same person as approving, and making sure there's a second check on any where that is the case. So that has been removed as a significant deficiency. It's still an item we follow up and make sure that those compensating controls every year are still in place. And we communicate those items to management and let them know what those compensating controls are in case of turnover. The controls don't go missing. So those are communicated every year with Sarah and the management team. And with that, I just want to highlight within the financial statements, in the footnotes, financial statement 2 is really where you would probably want to look to make sure that the county is not out of compliance with any budgetary or cash laws. We did not have any compliance findings, but I just like to point that out when you receive the financials. That might be a good place to go look just to make sure that everything is in line with state statutes for the county. And again, no issues. I just want to point that footnote out. And with that, I will turn it over to any questions the commission may have.
Sure. Do you have any questions?
I do have a question. Might be a little bit on the nerdy side, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Can you explain the difference between GAP principles and the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide, the KMAG, that we're falling under?
Sure. So the easiest thing to explain is the KMAG. So that more closely follows cash basis, so cash in and out, and you do accrue for some accounts payable, so items that were owed at year end that weren't paid until after year end. GAAP basis financials require a lot of additional work where we're having to record significant amount of receivables, capital assets, liabilities like net pension, OPEB, long-term debt. That's all reflected on the face of the financial statements. And it has to follow Government Accounting Standards Board statements. And right now they're up to 101. So it's a significant task for smaller entities. So a lot of cities and counties in Kansas elect to do the KMAG options allowed by statute. Because of trying to do all those accruals is a significant lift, and this provides the ability for the county to show that they are meeting statutory requirements.
If I could add on to that, the county does do some of the additional analysis that is required under GAAP audits related to maintaining the capital assets inventory. What's that called?
Yeah,
capital
for
assets
compliance grants
Yeah.
stuff, inventory has to be kept for capital
Fixed assets
Yeah.
and some of the, so we still maintain some of those things that are required under GAAP that we have had in place, and we continue to monitor those. But we don't do all of the liabilities counting on our financial system that would be required by GAAP. In addition to that, really, we would need to hire additional certified accountant staff on site to do comprehensive annual financial reporting if we wanted to move to GAAP. It would require adding staff. And so it's been a decision at this time to stay at KMEG. So which actually I think with a cash basis system, it's simpler for the folks to tie back our financials to our cash position.
And I think you sort of answered this already, but this is a fairly common set of standards for municipalities and counties in Kansas.
In Kansas, yeah. So the state of Kansas has developed, and I'm not on the board now, but I was on the KMAG board for several years, has developed these accounting standards that cities and counties can elect to follow instead of issuing GAAP financial statements.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't think we have any further questions.
Thank you.
One from the public here, like to provide public comment on this item? Seeing none. Sarah, anyone online?
Hold on, just let me pull it up real quick. No.
Okay. Back to the commission for further comments and or motions.
Commissioners, before you make a motion, if I could, I just also want to really thank the work of our staff team that puts just so much time and effort into this process. It is truly a team effort here at Douglas County in putting these statements together. Brooke Sauer leads that effort for our organization. Every year we reach, there seems to be some new challenge this year. It was related to the implementation of the new tax system and its timing on preparing certain reports and getting those things done. So every year I think we learn from this process. Every year we take it very seriously and we talk about it. And I want to thank Brooke and then the dozens of, probably a dozen folks throughout our organization plus that really work hard to get this put together every year.
Thank you, Sarah. Brooke, that comes from all of us for sure. We know all the hard work that goes into this. It's easy to access the information. And Tara, thanks. We've seen you many times and we appreciate the work that you do for us. So thank you for that. I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept the 2020-22 financial statement as prepared.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to the second item, which is a site plan, SP 23-00216 for a contractor shop yard at 1749 East 1500 Road. Carl is here.
Commissioners, I have Mary Miller joining the panel.
Okay.
Mary, you're in the panel.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. I will be sharing my screen. And this is a site plan for a contractor's shopper yard. It's proposed to have exterior storage as part of the yard use, and also construction sales and services is being proposed as an accessory use. Construction sales and services is being added because that use would allow customers to come to the site. And while the applicant indicated they don't typically have customers come, they wanted that to be an option, as sometimes their customers do want to come see the product on site. This property was before the commission in April for a rezoning. The very northern strip of the property was rezoned from agriculture to light industrial, and this site plan is the second step or the next step in the development process. The property is located at 1749 East 1500 Road. It's shown here with the red box. It is about 1.8 acres, and as you can see, it is in close proximity to the city limits of Lawrence, shown in the dashed lines. It is in Tier 2 of the urban growth area, which means it's expected that it would annex before 2040, and it is adjacent to I-70 to the north. This is a site as it is currently developed. We have a residence, we have a shed, and there's a wide driveway, and that's what's on the site now. This is from the site plan, and it shows what's being proposed. Number 1 is that residence we saw. Number 2 is that driveway, and 3 is that existing shed. Number 4 would be a new lateral field, which the Douglas County Health Department would require. 5 is the new building. It's about 11,500 square feet. 6 is a gravelled area. It's got gravelled parking and access drive around the building. And then to the south, there would be the exterior storage of some of the materials. The applicant did have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get a variance because our zoning regulations require that if you are on a paved road, then any parking would have to be paved as well. And the intent of that is to avoid dragging gravel out onto the paved road. The applicant went to the Board of Zoning Appeals and got a variance from that, subject to the condition that this variance applies only to this building and this use. So if there were any change in use or if the building was expanded, they would either need to surface the parking area in compliance with the code or seek a new variance. And number 7 is a concrete pavement. And then number 8 is a detention pond around the north and the west side of the property. You may recall with the rezoning application, there was considerable discussion about drainage concerns, and the drainage district and some property owners in the area brought those to the commission. So with the site plan, the applicant provided a drainage study, and the county engineer worked with him, and the drainage, the detention that's being shown on the site now was approved by the county engineer. So with the site plan, we have certain review criteria, and one of the principal ones is the proposed use and design of the site compatible with nearby zoning and land uses? The zoning in this area is predominantly light industrial. That's the purple shaded area. There is an area of clustered preservation zoning to the southeast, and this has a platted rural subdivision. And then to the north of Interstate 70, we have agricultural zoning. The figure on the right shows the airspace overlay district. The airport is just to the northeast. So this is within that overlay district. This is the approach zone. And so as a result, part of the site plan required that the applicant notify the FAA of their plans, and they provided a determination that would be acceptable with conditions. And one of those conditions was that the applicant notify them within 5 days of the time that their construction reaches the maximum height, or if they decide to abandon the project. And so that is a condition of the site plan. It's written on the site plan itself. And also they would notify the planning office. Now, I don't think this one actually is written on the site plan, but it is a condition we're recommending that they would notify the FAA at that time, and they would also provide planning with their notification and also with any response the FAA provides. So we have that for the file. While this area is zoned for light industrial, the uses are not light industrial predominantly. This area is mostly agricultural, as you can see, and then there are rural residences, and the little red dots in the left figure mark the location of the residences. And so when we look at whether or not it's compatible, when we look to the property to the south, we have quite a separation, and then we have 2 buildings that would be between it and the proposed development. However, if you look on the figure on the right, there will be a exterior storage area, and there will be some parking that'll probably be visible to the south. And so landscaping in the form of trees would be applied along the southern boundary just to create a buffer or sort of a screen from the property to the south. There is a closer residence to the east, directly across the street or the road, and you'll notice that there is a landscaped berm being proposed right along the road right of way, and that would be landscaped with trees. And the intent would be to buffer that parking area and the new building from the roadway, as well as from the residence to the east. Only building mounted lighting is being proposed, and these would be full cutoff, so there'd be no light trespass off site. And the applicant has agreed to use 3000 K, that's a color temperature. And if you look at LED lights, when you see 3000 K, those are the mellower yellow lights. When you get into 4000 and 5000, that's the glaring white lights. We haven't updated our regulations yet to include LED lighting standards. So we usually just request from an applicant that they use the 3000K. And this applicant has agreed, so this will be the mellower lights, the 3000K lighting. The property has access on East 1500 Road, which is a major collector. It's a paved road maintained by Douglas County. And the business use and the residents would utilize that one shared drive. And throughout the review of the project, staff expressed concern about the safety of the residents and the shared drive. But the applicant indicated that the residents would be used for employee housing, and this should address the safety factor. However, if the housing is used for anyone other than employees, staff would strongly recommend protection measures such as fencing in that front yard or any other means to keep the residents or their children from the driveway. There are no code standards requiring this, so this is not a requirement of the site plan, but the Board of County Commissioners could apply requirements if they find them necessary to protect the health and safety of the on-site residents. These are the review criteria that we look at when we review site plans. We find that these have been met. And staff is recommending approval of the site plan with the conditions noted in the staff report, and that being the notice to the FAA and then providing planning with that information. So that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer questions. And I know the applicant is, I believe they're attending through Zoom.
Thank you, Mary. Commissioners, do you have questions?
I have a question, Mary. This is Commissioner Reed. I'm curious about, are you aware of other light industrial sites that also have a residence on them, and any language or conditions around those safety concerns that you just discussed at the end?
No, I know that we have caretakers, managers. Sometimes those residences are on the same property and they can use the same driveway. And the assumption being, if you're the manager, you're interrelated with that facility. And so you should be able to manage that. We have some of those are permitted, but I'm not aware. And I think it's a little bit rare to share the driveway. But in this case, there isn't enough room on this property to put in two separate driveways, and they have this one large driveway. So I checked with others, to see if they had concerns or any suggested solutions. I don't know, fencing the yard, maybe one of the solutions. But as I talked to the planning director, he noted I didn't have anything to point to in the code, except just general safety concerns that I was having. And that's why he suggested I just bring that up to you.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful. It sounds like the shared driveway is sort of the unique element here that creates the safety concern. Thanks, Mary.
Commissioners, I would remind us, like the CUP that we saw last week had two driveways, one for the residents. We asked them to take one out, so it's shared, and we didn't have any other conditions on that. So,
Any other questions? Okay, we'll hear from the applicant. I think I saw Dean.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dean Grove with Grove Engineering. I don't have much to add from what Mary has presented to you. We have had that discussion about safety. Glenn, the owner of Midwest Pools that owns the property and intends to use the property, I think was having a little trouble getting logged on. But, as Mary said, he, his idea that he would rent the place to employees, one makes a better deal for them and gets them to work and all that. But, looking at the site, that I think it's important that, yes, it is a shared drive, but it's quite wide, and that, the driveway is not just a pathway to get quite a ways away, that, the traffic's going to be slow because it's, they're just coming in off the highway or slowing down to enter the highway, as well as the screening that we provided from the new buildings and things to the south also, would provide a buffer or a barrier, if you will, to the backyard. If you notice the site plan, there's a quite large backyard behind the house that really won't ever, come into play with the business. Glenn, as the owner, is obviously cognizant of the, hey, I don't want to rent to somebody with 8 children because that's just going to be problematic for me and my my business. So he's very aware of that. But, you know, the never say never. I think right now he's renting it to somebody from North Lawrence whose house burned and just needed a place right away. And so they were able to move in temporarily. So, you know, you just never want to say never and, you know, put some condition on there that may not be necessary, because I've looked at it and like I say, the speed of the traffic where the two will be together, it's just going to be low. There's no, you know, there's no long road or something where you can get a lot of speed up. And the driveway is quite wide. So, but again, we'll defer to you if there's, you have any other suggestions, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions, on what Mary's presented to you.
Thank you, Dean. Commissioners, any questions? Doesn't look like we have any. Thanks for being here. Is there any member of the public who'd like to comment on this item? Anyone online, Sarah? Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and or motions.
Really, any of the concerns I would have had on this property were already addressed with the site plan that we saw, drainage, screening, parking, all of the above. But I don't have any concerns.
Yeah, I only have a bit of concern about just water retention. This is a spot where we have challenges with water, but I think knowing that Chad has approved that, it gives me more comfort.
Same. I will gladly make a motion to approve a site plan SP 23-00216 for contractors shop/yard on approximately 1.82 acres at 1749 East 1500 Road, based on the findings listed in the staff report and subject to the following conditions of approval listed on the staff report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Thank you, Mary. I think Mary froze on us. All right, we'll move on to appointments. I'm not aware of any appointments we have this evening. Commissioners, do you have any?
I don't think I've pulled the name up, so I probably shouldn't have started talking, but I believe the position for the Peasley Board is a reappointment, and I believe they're willing to serve again, and I'm not seeing it on here.
We'll check on it and we'll get it to you next week.
Sounds great, thank you.
Okay, if there's no appointments, we'll move on to Commissioner Administrator Miscellaneous, and we typically start with Sarah's memo.
Thank you, Commissioners. My updated memo is in the packet. I do want to point out that in addition to, one new date that was added this year is a behavioral health summit that Bob Tryansky and our team and Carrie Britt and our team are working really hard to put together. Which will be held October 19th at the Lawrence Arts Center. So it would be great. And there's some information about it, and really excited to have Kevin Kling be a part of that effort. And he'll be participating in a number of efforts over those few days. So that is in there. I want to mention too, that there is an updated memo from Jeff Crick, Planning and Development Services Director, on the Land Development Code update. So commissioners might be interested in that, and a link to the September newsletter for the Appraiser's Office. Next week, we will follow up on renovations to the Law Enforcement Center from the work session we had a couple weeks back. And I'm getting a lot of, we won't have a work session on the 4th, but I'm getting a bunch lined up for the rest of our year. That's all I have, commissioners.
Thank you, Sarah. Commissioners, any miscellaneous items? Okay, we are adjourned.